No. Hold on.
So I just started recording here with the Mortgage Podcast, episode number 2 with Brian View. I'm Rick Rock, CMB, and with Bob Nemi, which is CMB as well, the chief CMB, the tattooed CMB. And look, I love this. I got really good feedback from the first episode, Bob, of the Mortgage Podcast. Did you get good feedback?
Same. I got a lot of good outreach, a lot of good discussion. The folks that did get to see it had positive things to say about our discussion.
Well, I watched it, and that's. I'm like, hey guys, don't forget about me over here. Let me in the room.
Well, what's great about it, and I love Bob's idea around how can we showcase the CMB program more so, and I think the best way of showcasing the program is by showcasing the leaders of the program that are out of the program, that are doing things in the business that's shaping the future, the present and future state of housing, right? And I love it too, right? To me, this is why I think it right next to my 40 under 40 plaque, you see, which was like I said in 2011, you see my CMB, my CMB plaque, right?
There it is.
Oh, there we go. I tucked away. I even put my CMB plaque even above and beyond my doctorate plaque. My doctorate diploma is there, but it's the CMB plaque that is, I think, most
the doctorate is so old school. CMB is the most recent, accolade. So,
the CMB it's the doctorate of mortgageology, whatever the word is.
No, what's funny is when I got my doctorate in finance, the focus was on public and private partnerships, right? And there was a section of my dissertation that was focused on the GSEs, but in going through the CMB program, I like the academic side of it because it really was a much more holistic overview across every aspect of the industry, kind of tethered together to make someone almost like a liberal arts education, someone who's really well-rounded within this particular discipline.
I last week, maybe it was earlier this week, the first full week of the year is always a struggle, right? Friday can't come soon enough, but somebody, a recent CMB who is a loan originator, posted, and maybe Bob, you can fact check the number, but the claim was there's only 17 active CMBs who are producing mortgage loan officers. And
I don't know that it's that low, but I think that's, if you go by job title.
Yeah. So it got me thinking, what better way to differentiate yourself as a mortgage loan originator than to have the designation? Now, I get it. Consumers have no idea what CMB stands for. But as soon as you can put those 3 letters on your digital, physical card that consumers are going to see and feel, I would be telling the story as a loan officer of what that means. And to your point, Rick, the depth and breadth of knowledge that the CMB process requires you to know. If I knew what I know about the CMB program and I was a consumer outside of mortgage, I would be actively and intentionally seeking to get a loan from a CMB. That's the way I would think about it.
Yeah, well, I think we related to this to Mismo, right? Like I was telling Bob, when I got in the business kind of the second time around. So I came up in the business through my father. He owned a mortgage at a real estate company. So I graduated high school in 91, undergrad 95. So in the early 90s, it was really DOS, converting over to Windows 95. Calyx had come out with their disks. And that it was at that point in time, I was like, I'm not doing mortgage anymore. This industry stinks, and I don't want to work for my father anymore. And so that's when I went and got my electrical engineering degree. But when I reemerged in 2002, I had this natural bend toward the technology side of it. And that's when Mismo had really just had begun. And I think there were 3 years. When did Mismo begin, Brian?
I mean, 99.
98? I was going to say 98, 99,
Yeah.
And
26th year. We're in our 26th year. So
and Calyx was because there was so much volume of files going through the platform that there was this sense of like, how do we create a universal standard around around the technology that everyone wanted to plug in, order title, order appraisals, do everything within point. But because that original MISMO committee was just a bunch of technologists, nobody knew about it. And I think and Brian sort of inherits some of that. I was talking to a mortgage banker today, a company we acquired, Homespire, and Michael, phenomenal leader, Rappaport. He was like, I'm not really familiar with MISMO.
Yeah.
And it's because his head's been in this business, growing a very successful mortgage company, that he wasn't aware of it. And I was like, Brian, it's because it was just a bunch of engineering nerds trying to figure out how to get technical protocols from one platform to the next. And it was much more of a res tech, the residential technology committee out of the MBA.
Yeah.
Because I think it came from that committee, or it was operating in parallel with that committee from the MBA. Is that true, Brian?
I would I'd have to fact check, but I have no reason to doubt that it makes a lot of sense that it would be true, given kind of we're a wholly owned sub of MBA today. But yeah, I agree. I think for the longest time, and if I rewind the clock 6 months or so, maybe 9 months, when I really got into this process of ending up where I ended up, I knew enough about MISMO to be dangerous. And I knew enough about MISMO relative to what, my job was and has been over the years. And, until you're in it, in my case, every day I'm in it as an employee of MISMO, but the community that makes up MISMO, which is the subject matter experts across the different working groups, man, you talk about some legacy institutional knowledge. It's pretty powerful. And I view one of my roles, and one of the most important objectives in my role in this calendar year 2026 is to raise the awareness of MISMO, so that the broader industry and deeper into the industry, people really understand the power and the value and the importance of MISMO. Because as we as an industry tackle this thing called AI going forward, standards are critical to be able to implement and adopt and get massive efficiency.
Brian, I would 100% agree, and think that so far, I know you've done a lot of knowledge, sharing with the world, because a lot of people, when you were first announced as the new president, and we all recognize you as a CMB, to being in that position, right away I had 5 or 6 people reach out and they're like, what is MISMO again? And I had to kind of direct it to, and it's one of those things that's always been on the side for me. I know Rick Hill tried to get me involved originally when the mortgage compliance data set discussions were beginning, and it was like, yeah, I understand, but how about when we get to the part where we have to take it to stage 2? How do we get adoption with the states and all of that? So I mean, it's critical moving forward. And I know I've hit you with 5 or 6 different topics on different things that are on the edge of what you're doing as well, just trying to make you aware of things going on with the regulatory world and computer, all things computer, and et cetera.
Yeah.
Well, kind of what Brian's doing with MISMO, as far as making it a much more outward organization versus an inward organization. If I could do one thing for the CMBs, would be kind of similarly to because I do believe, as I was talking to Brian earlier, and I think we've talked about this too, Bob, where I don't know why every news organization, whenever there's Trump announced $200 billion worth of MBSs that are going to be purchased through the GSEs, questions of like, can the president even do that? And and what's the relationship between the president and the FHFA, and what's the relationship between that and the GSEs, and what does that have to do with conservatorship? It's like, those are CMB subject matters. Like, news stations across the country should be talking to people with a CMB, because at least they have the foundational experience and relationships to answer those questions in a competent manner, rather than journalistically kind of swinging the bat.
And that is one of Deb Jones, with Citizens Bank, one of our current CMB chair. One of Deb's initiatives is to try to get that internal database for us, and then be able to share it outside of the world. So when we have those people who need true guidance and information from an expert, they can talk to the CMB that's there. Because believe me, you want to talk servicing, I'm going to call Seth Sprague. We want to call, so many different things. There are, experts in the field. We are not all as deep into secondary and capital markets as Deb Jones is. But we need to continue that growth, as you mentioned, Rick, so that we can expand who we are, what we can do to the outside world. And it's that challenge. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, and Brian, one of my original discussions with Rick was, our knowledge of the CMB society starts the day we enter. You don't get much insight into who it is, how it's run, what the bylaws are, any of that information till you earn your CMB, then you're in. And that's the challenge, especially when we do things like the Rossler Award. You always have to, I just finished my, 3.5-year term through leadership. You're trying to award who is the best CMB to earn the Rossler Award. Unless you really know who's been involved in the society and what they've done for the society, in addition to the mortgage world, it's kind of hard to understand who are the past chairs, because I wasn't around when, Brian Handel was the chair, or, Dana Abernathy, when I first came in, that was the year that she was terming out. So it's difficult, and trying to make that awareness within the mortgage world, let alone when we have topics like what Rick was just mentioning. One, I would ask you, if they're buying 200, what's that do to the Fannie Freddie balance sheet, and how does that qualify them if they're, they want to try and come out of conservatorship? That's one of the first questions I went, wait, we're going to have them spend the money they're trying to, to hold on to so that they can, emerge at some point. So anyway.
Well, that is an interesting point, Bob. But what I would say is that it'll become very circular, because the more in demand those with a CMB, the more that demand goes up to have a competent voice on radio or on TV,
right,
talking to important housing, mortgage, and real estate issues. Then that's going to drive demand for the CMB, like internally within our ranks. Right now, it's just been kind of like the Masons or something, not I'm just kidding. It's not really like the Masons, but I'm a new CMB, so I'm still the unconverted converted. I'm still the new kid in the church.
You're not tatted up yet.
I have temporaries for everybody. I'll have them, at all the conferences I'm going to. So the temporary tattoos. But Rick, one of those things is, and I continue to reach out to CMBs that I see that are in prominent roles in our industry, and I'll remind them, hey, your fellow CMBs would really love it if you change your LinkedIn profile from your name to CMB to do it. I just had somebody that I saw speaking in Texas on a conference, and it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he does not have this.
And everybody's you have to get the badge too, the LinkedIn badge.
Right.
Or the MBA badge.
From Credly. Right. But I mean, listing it on our business card, putting it in our email addresses, being able, it's easy in Zoom to go up to the 3 dots and change it so it says your name, CMB. But, just to have it out there. So when you're representing it yourself, you're representing us, because you are, everything we do publicly or privately, once we earn the CMB, we represent the society. And it's one of those things that we have to understand that, when you're out there, the world sees you. And when I mentioned in my address when I was, terming out, walk with confidence, but don't walk with, pride. We are always looking for that next group of people. You have to be, as my boss, Mitch Kiter, has called me, an evangelist, a CMB evangelist. Yeah. It may not be right for everybody, but for those people who are at the right point, and by the way, I think a week from today, we start up our next prep class, for the next crop of 2026 CMBs, we have to keep an open ear to find out those people that they're going to have questions. And you'd be surprised how many people have questions, want to know more, want to know about the challenges. what the testing process is and what it is, and then what it can mean to you. I mean, professionally for me, getting opportunities to meet people like both of you, and have these kind of conversations, you just don't come across those in a normal, in your normal work life, because I work in reg compliance, talking to, legislators and state regulators all the time. And that's not what you guys do. But it's such a great overlap, and the benefit of the community of the CMB society is its best draw to me.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. That is the internal benefit of the tribe. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to say from a let's just say from a biz dev perspective, right? So my former life at FinLocker, B2B sales, right? And I found this back to my Flagstar days as well. I can't think of a single instance or occurrence where I reached out to a fellow CMB, never with a blatant, sales call, but just for a request for a meeting. I've never, ever had an instance where that was turned down. And likewise, I accept every meeting, every request. I'll take any phone call, reach out I'll talk to any other CMB. And there's a mutual level of respect for each other, because we've gone through the work and the prep and continue to live up to what it means to be a CMB. And so, not that that's the only reason somebody should, pursue this, but just know that you have an army of resources that is always available.
Brian, when did you earn your CMB?
2005.
Wow.
Yeah.
I knew you've had yours longer than I did, but that's quite a while. I got mine in 16.
Yeah. So I was at IndyMac, RIP, at the time.
You always say that. It's hilarious.
I do. I say other things too, but I'm not going to do that here today. By the way, IndyMac was one of it. It's still, when I think about the places I've had the privilege to work, it was one of the best cultures ever. And Mike Perry was a big reason. So Mike Perry came back from like an MBA annual, and he was ticked off because on stage in one of the big events, Wells Fargo was cited as having the largest population of CMBs in the industry from a per capita basis, right? And Mike came back. I remember in a leadership meeting soon following that event, every one of us on his senior team had a literal goal tied to our performance of getting our CMB. Luckily I was already in the process. I just hadn't completed it. So he wanted to be able to have IndyMac named as the single largest entity per capita with CMBs. And we got there, I think not the following year, but the year after. And Mike himself, to his credit, went through and was a CMB as well. And I share that because I would like I want to challenge the execs that are out there, whether you're an owner operator or you're a C-suite at a mortgage company, whether you're on the lending origination side or on the partner vendor side, you should make it a priority to encourage your teammates, team members to seek and pursue the designation, because it's a reflection ultimately back to you and your culture as a leader in the company. And so that's how I would challenge leaders, is to seek out and find people on your team that, are at the stage in their career where they've earned enough points, because there's a process, guys. It's not automatic. Right. You can't even sit for the exam until you have earned your points, through participation in the industry and things like that. But I think if I was leading, a company, I would be pushing and pursuing, as many of my people as possible to become CMBs, which I just put myself on notice that, hey, Mismo team, get ready. I'm going to be coming to you. You're all gonna get in the process.
How big is the Mismo team when you talk about it like that?
Well, I would say from a per capita basis, we probably are pretty close to the leaders for companies in terms of CMB. There's 6 of us on Mismo proper, right? There's 6 of us that are FTEs that work for Mismo.
Got it. No, so what are your, outside of just being much more public about it and generating more awareness around it, like what are the specific priorities, would you say? I know your conference is next week. What are you guys going to be talking about next week to be able to drive, at least move your needle with respect to the priorities of Mismo?
Yeah. So you hit on one of the 3 things that I'm focused on: awareness and, getting the opportunity to do this. Thank you again, guys, for this opportunity. Awareness is like a big part of what I'm focused on for my own strategy. So awareness, adoption, and alignment. That's the theme of our, for 2026 for the community of Mismo. And so the awareness is all the things that I've been doing and I'll continue to do just to raise the knowledge base, the knowledge of Mismo across the industry. Adoption, when you think of any kind of standard, all the work that goes into it is useless if they're not adopted, right?
Dude, your post, not to interrupt, but to interrupt you, like your post was brilliant. Your most recent post, when you were like, imagine a world without USB standards or metric or just the total chaos there would be, and then try to organize like a technology protocol where you're trying to exchange data from CRMs to, Loan Vision to Encompass to, POSs and not having everything to some degree together. So, I mean, I thought it was hopefully it performed well because I thought it was a smart post.
It didn't, but that was user error. That's a story.
Oh, it didn't?
No, it did not.
Oh.
I've had some good comments.
I thought that would resonate.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a banger, as the kids say. I just hit it. I think I might have just reposted it. No, this is sometimes, you want to see how the sausage is made. I do put a lot of content on LinkedIn like you do, Rick. And I leverage a lot of the tools of LinkedIn, like the scheduling tool. And so I was multitasking when I was writing that post, and I thought I had scheduled it to go today, maybe, and it wasn't ready to go. So anyway, that's a story for a different show. But back to adoption, right? That's number 2 in our 3A kind of strategy. We have all these standards that are created and maintained, and the adoption of standards varies across the continuum. And so a big focus for us in 2026 is making sure through our awareness strategy that adoption of standards is continuing to grow, because again, the work that goes into standards is kind of thrown out if we're not adopting it at scale. And then the third A is alignment. And this one I think is, the more I talk to people and share our story, this is the one I get most excited about. And Bob, this will line up right with what we're in, how you're involved with us and in this MCD, and Rick, that'll dovetail nicely into the theme for the summit next week. Alignment, it means a lot when I think about Mismo. There's alignment between at the lender level, right? Because we're a nonprofit. We exist by and for the industry, and we only can do the work we do if industry's engaged, involved, both from an intellectual and expertise perspective, but also from an economic perspective. And so a lot of why I'm more visible on this topic, building the awareness of Mismo, is so that the lending community in particular, as the innovation investment fees the invoices for innovation investment fee, which is how lenders participate economically, as those start to hit the market, so to speak, in February, the lenders that are receiving them will be looking at this invoice and hopefully be able to understand their relatively small investment and what they get in value because Mismo exists, right? And so that alignment's really important, and making sure the value is understood is super important. But where alignment, like where the rubber meets the road on alignment, is around, when we first start building a standard, we have to have alignment at the table on what adoption looks like. And if we can't really get aligned on what adoption looks like when we're just at the very early stages of building a standard, we need to kind of check ourselves and maybe make the decision that we're not ready to pursue this standard. And we haven't necessarily done that really as well as we should. And that's something we're going to focus on. But as it relates to Summit next week, Winter Summit is in Amelia Island, Florida. The one of the big pieces, big themes of Summit is the mortgage compliance data set. And this is where alignment comes to life in a different way. Because this particular work product, the MCD, at its inception, it had at the table lenders. A lender brought it to MISMO, brought the problem statement to MISMO, which the problem statement was, we're licensed in 50 states. We're subject to 50, state audits. We have 50 state regulators that ask us for the same data in 50 different ways, right? Can MISMO help us and help industry by creating a standard around the data that gets requested by the states? That's a simple way to put it, but for the sake of speed here. At the same time that lender brought that problem statement to MISMO, the Conference of State Bank Supervisors, CSBS, which is the trade association effectively for the state regulators, and Bob will check me, they brought to MISMO via their relationship with the Mortgage Bankers Association. So now you can see how everything gets connected. They brought a problem that they were trying to solve for their constituents, their members, their states, which was each of us has our own, data set, data structure. And because of that, it wouldn't make sense for a technology company to go build a solution 50 different ways. And so,
right.
The states in their own way were trying to solve the same problem that lenders were trying to solve. And so the result is this. Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was going to let you, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished there, and I was going to just dovetail in, but go ahead and finish your thought first.
Well, the output was this mortgage compliance data set. And so the theme of Summit next week is we're at the stage of that particular work product where we've moved from creation now to adoption. And so on Monday at Summit, we'll have a 3-hour workshop. And again, in the room at the table, Bob will be there, state regulators will be there, the CSBS will be there, mortgage lenders, legal compliance experts, compliance technology platforms, LOS platforms, all the people that have to come together to ensure successful adoption will be in the room as we do this workshop to really talk about this next stage and phase of adoption.
And where it really fits in and with the data set, especially with SES, the state examination system, which is what the NMLS utilizes for exams across. Right now, it's mortgage examinations. And Conference of State Bank Supervisors, CSBS, runs the NMLS. ARMOR, which is the American Association of Residential Mortgage Regulators, is the other group. And it's the same group of people, just different folks in leadership on the different ones. But that next conference, and I believe the Winter Summit's part 2 of a big 3-part unveiling of this and try to get the momentum behind adoption, will be the NMLS conference, which will be coming up in mid-February in Orlando. I know Brian said he's going to be there. That's one of the conferences where I'm always very visible and very vocal at, because I do hold both the industry, as well as the state regulators to a higher standard. We need to align, we need to do things. And one of those challenges is, and I'm in North Carolina now, I did a presentation from the North Carolina Commissioner of Banks on Tuesday. They're a state that has their own state examination system. They have their own internal system. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to use SES for all of our stuff once it gets to that level and it's up, it's on par, because that is still in development. But it's much better that they develop a program and a process when we're all aligned. Because the first time they rolled it out, they tried to do a one company, one exam with 17 states, It wasn't one company, one exam. We didn't align on, what was the time period. We didn't align on the scope. Somebody threw servicing in there at the last minute, and it ended up being 17 different exams all happening at the same time, and it was a nightmare. But as we evolve this is the perfect time to bring it in and say, let's all talk about the same things in the same manners, in the same, have the same definitions, because one of the evolutions of the mortgage call report over time has been just getting all the states to agree what is an application, what's covered, do we put this in there, do we not put this in there, making it a standard across so that companies can do it and not have to file it this way for this state and this way for that state. This state wants investment properties, which I did actually have earlier this week, a state said, shouldn't they be putting investment properties on here? And I said, no. So anyway, so it is very important. And when we get in front of the state regulators, I would love to see be able to, Brian, to present at Tuesday, the regulator only day, and be around and be visible for that. And I'll be happy to introduce you to as many folks as you'd like there. It's interesting. I'm one of 5 people that was the ombudsman for the NMLS system at one point, and I did it for just about 2 years, right before I left being a state regulator.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have you as a resource. Given your past experience, not just as a regulator, but like you said, in that seat as ombudsman.
I know. Now you both are you both going to be at the IMB conference at the MBA, and also in Amelia Island here on February 2nd?
Yeah.
It's funny. Mitch's office reached out to see if he wanted, because Mitch wanted to meet with me at 10 o'clock, and I felt like the assistant principal was calling me to his office, so I wasn't exactly sure. What that was all about. What was that?
Every time I get a phone call, every time I get a phone call from Mitch, or somebody says Mitch wants to talk to him, he's like, "What do they do?"
Yeah.
But no,
exactly.
I think Brian's got a meeting with Mitch as well. I know. I think I'm joining you for that one. But no, it's a great opportunity. I think it's as much a listening session for Mitch as well as business development opportunities.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite stories about Mitch was, do you remember the lawyer Paul something who drafted the LO comp rule in 2012, 2013? Paul, he worked for the administration, was like one of Cordry's right-hand guys, one of right-hand lawyers, tall, skinny. I forget, he was a real smart, anyways, but we were kind of like, Mitch was on stage, in essence, debating this Paul attorney. I forget his name, Paul.
It'll come to you 5 minutes after we're done.
I know, but it was so funny because he really took him to task on some of the contradictions of the in a very Mitch witty, smart kind of way. And it was in a very open forum kind of debate in 2014 timeframe. And I had hired Mitch a few times on some contracts and different things with some clients. And I was just like, dude, I like this kid from Brooklyn. He's from New York City somewhere. And his story about the mortgage business it's just such a powerful story. As a kid growing up in New York City, that I was like, this guy, the industry is going to miss a figure like Mitch. We're all getting older and grayer. But boy, I tell you, we're going to miss, the industry is going to miss a guy like him when he retires.
He has plans to stay around for a long time. At least that's what he told me, because he made me sign up for as long as he had Jack Connick before, and he had Jack for 13 years. So I'm just coming up on 3 with WBK. So. Oh,
that's great. Yeah, Jack was a legend too. Jack was great. Well, look, I appreciate, Brian, you being on the Mortgage Podcast Show, our second episode, and look forward to supporting you at NISMO and doing whatever we can do. And Bob, I appreciate your leadership and sort of organizing this podcast, and because I think there's a lot of good things we're going to be able to do with it.
Yeah, I'm excited that you guys did this, and thank you from all of the fellow CMBs that are out there for doing this. This is great.
And 2 quick points. Let's see. One first is today I did post the call for nominations So we start at the beginning of the year, the search for the new CMB secretary and how that's going to work. It's a little complicated, a little bit out there, trying to understand how it works, because we have a nominating committee, which serves of the three immediate past chairs and then three other active CMBs from the membership. So we elect the other three, but we got to get a ballot for nominations first. So that process started today. I posted it both in the CMB LinkedIn group as well as in our CMB community online at MBA. And then the second thing, and Brian, to follow up on your statement before and your challenge to leaders out there in the world, if you're a leader and you have questions about the mortgage industry, you can always find me. I am more than happy. Believe me, Mitch Kiter is the one who dubbed me the CMB evangelist, because I'm more than happy to talk about it. I've gone all over the country doing presentations for it, helping people get together and learn more about the CMBs or utilize CMBs in the markets for doing presentations across the country. So happy to answer questions. I know Brian would be the same way. Rick is a new one, would also be able to, answer questions. Whatever you do, we can point you in the right direction and tell you a couple of next steps.
Love it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I love being an unelected, unofficial evangelist of the CMB Society. So I'm excited to continue to do it and support the organization. I'm only 3 months old, so I'm barely out of utero when it comes to this process. So I'm excited. I have 7 kids, so I know what out of utero means. So so on that note, Brian, awesome to see you. Bob, phenomenal to meet with you again. It's an honor and a privilege. I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. And this is a wrap.
Sounds great.
Thank you.